the Dementia Researcher Podcast, talking careers, research, conference highlights, and so much more.
Hello and welcome to the Dementia Researcher Podcast. Today we're talking about conference lightning talks. Fast, focused, a brilliant way to share your work and to be remembered. So stick with us as we share top tips for first-time presenters. Hello, I'm Adam Smith, Program Director for Dementia Researcher, and I'm back as your host. Today, I'm joined by three guests. First, we have the brilliant Dr Sam Moxon, a research fellow at the University of Birmingham. Sam works with bioprinting and tissue models and has recently become the CEO of his own spin-out company. Regular listeners will find Sam's a familiar voice as one of our contributors to blogs and podcasts. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Next, we have the incredible Dr Lindsey Sinclair, an honorary senior clinical research fellow and locum consultant old age psychiatrist at the University of Bristol and Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Partnership. Also, somebody who's recently started writing blogs for Dementia Researcher. Hi, Lindsey. And finally, we have the amazing Dr Ece Bayram, who is an assistant professor at the University of Colorado, Denver. Ece studies sex, gender, and ethno-racial differences in neurodegenerative diseases and is incredibly active in the Lewy body community and in iStart as well. Hi, Ece.
Hello.
Thank you all for joining us.
Hi, hello, thank you.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Let's start with some brief intros in your own words. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And to warm us up, I want to ask you, what would be your lightning talk walk-on song? Lindsey, why don't you go first?
Okay, so in addition to the introduction you've just kindly given me, I'm about to move to a new university. I haven't quite signed on the dotted line yet, hence the air of mystery about it, but I'm super duper excited about moving to a new institution and sticking my fingers in more dementia research pies. And I think my walk-on tune would have to be Blinding Light by The Weeknd. It's one of my all-time favourite songs.
Good choice. I'm going for that. Sam, why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Dr Sam Moxon. I'm a biomaterial scientist primarily, but I've just started to step a little bit out of academia and into more commercial world. We spun a company out of our research about 18 months ago, and I found myself running that. And that's been a heck of a journey. Lots of ups and downs, but it's definitely something I would recommend if you get the opportunity to do it. I think my walkout song would probably be Thunderstruck by AC/DC. So that would get people really, really up for it.
I could go for that. And of course, as part of spinning out your own company, I would imagine you've become pretty familiar with the pitch.
Yes,
right?
Definitely, absolutely.
Where walk-on music feels like it might actually be a thing.
Yeah.
Have you actually had the opportunity to pick a walk-on song?
No, not yet. I've had it's not walk-on music, but I had a weird pitch where it was a room full of investors, 60 seconds, no slides, and you have to try and convert them. That was like a flash talk, but on steroids. That was intense.
So you've got some expertise that are going to be useful today.
Hope so, yeah.
Ece.
Well, in addition to what you shared about me, I can add I'm an MD PhD from Turkey. So I had a bit of an unconventional training path where I did clinical first and then I dove into the research realm and I became too obsessed with the research that I completely abandoned clinical and I'm full research now. And I love it. And my walkout song is definitely going to be the Imperial March because it's going to, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I can't do it any other way.
Not the cantina music. I think
Oh, no, I don't want it to be, fun and, relaxing. I want it to be like attention grabbing and getting everyone tense, like they're ready to hear me out. Or else.
What about Duel of the Fates? That'd be pretty intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah? I could see you with you'd have to have your arms crossed as you did that, and you definitely need a power suit. Actually, maybe we should make capes a thing. Do you need a cape for your next lightning talk?
I think that's a brilliant idea. I'm totally on board with that.
I can see an iStart cape going.
I actually have one from World Book Day. It's a Dementor outfit. But I feel like that would be too scary.
Yeah, probably. Well, if you had the mask going with it, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely not.
Well, thank you all very much for your walk-on tunes. If anybody's watching or listening, I'd love to know what your walk-on tunes would be. Drop those in the chat. As I mentioned at the start of the show, today we're exploring a presentation style that's been cropping up more and more at conferences, the lightning talk. Short and sharp, often under 5 minutes, lightning talks are becoming a common feature on scientific meeting agendas. You'll find lots of guidance online about preparing abstracts or delivering talks and posters, but lightning talks are an entirely different beast, which is why I thought we'd focus on this today. And Lindsey, I'm gonna bring you in here to set the scene for us. Can you start by explaining what a lightning talk is and how it typically works?
Yes. So a lightning talk, like you said, is something that's really, really short. And I think that's what makes it quite so tricky, because you still need to have a lot of the same content as you would in a longer talk, but obviously delivered much faster, which means that you can't go into half as much detail as you would like. And I think that's the craft of them, really, being able to decide what to put in and what to chuck out from a longer talk.
That's the crux, isn't it? I mean, it is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a short talk. Sam, why do you think conferences have embraced this format so widely?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, firstly, it's the volume of abstracts that are going into conferences now, and not just the volume, but the quality as well. So it gets to a point where you don't want to reject a good abstract, so you shorten the length of the talks. I think it's also because I think in academia there's a push to get more early career researchers and PhD students giving talks as opposed to just 20, 30-minute plenaries all day. And I think a 5-minute talk is a good way to get, so especially young PhD students, used to presenting. And I think on top of that, there's a need to communicate science better to the public. And I think a 5-minute talk gets researchers used to compressing a lot of information into a short space of time. And that's really helpful when it comes to translating those ideas to the public as well. So I think it's a multifaceted thing, but I think we're going to see a lot more of it as well.
I'd agree. I'm one of anybody listening who heard last week's show knows that I'm one of the people organizing one of the AIC Neuroscience Next Hubs for next February. And we've just been having to work on the program, and lightning talks feature in there just because you want to try and cram as many speakers in there as you can and give people the opportunity, and trying to strike a balance between having a speaker who's going to kind of come onto the stage and get really deep into it for half an hour, or you could have 3 people do 10 minutes each. I don't know. I think it's a balance there. Edger, from your experience, how does the audience, do you think, benefit from those short talks as opposed to the longer ones?
I think right now, especially in this era, everyone has shorter attention span. So it's really hard to keep the attention of the audience on you during a long talk. So it gives you that chance to, grab that attention, bombard them really quick, and then leave them wanting more. And I mean, we all do the poster sessions, and a lot of the times you don't get to see a lot of the posters that you're interested in because you may have spent way too long of a time at one poster chatting with the speaker. So lightning talks kind of gives you that chance to actually hear everything, even though you may feel like that's not my topic, I'm not really interested in it. When you're exposed to it, you actually may hear something that grabs your attention. You may be like, hey, this is something I can pursue further. So it kind of gives you the chance to explore different topics you might necessarily be too focused on, and short attention span, quick grab, take your quick notes, and open for exploration in the later stages.
Sam, how do you decide what to include in a 3 to 5 minute talk?
You've only got a short amount of time to grab people's attention. So, and I think there's, we might talk a little bit later on structuring, but one thing I would encourage, not just in 3 to 5 minute talks, but in all talks, is to keep the instruction as short as possible, because no one wants to hear you setting the scene for 4 or 5 slides. Everyone switches off. And I think if you've got visual data, especially things like fluorescent images, stuff that's really colorful, I think stuff like that should always go in a flash talk because it grabs the audience's attention. Something that's really visual, or video or anything like that can really grab the attention. And failing that, or alongside that, the most impactful data you have, whether it's 2 or 3 figures that tell the most compelling story. Because the idea of a flash talk is that afterwards people will come to you when you're having a coffee or you're having lunch and ask you questions. So it's whatever that data is that you think could make a headline. That's what has to go in the bulk of your flash talk, get that data across. And even if you only show one figure and spend 3 minutes explaining it in a way that's exciting, that's better than trying to cram 12 figures into a talk, and people will only maybe pay attention to 2 or 3 of them.
That's quite a good point. I mean, how many talks have you been to at the last conference you went, and they spent the first 3 slides telling a bunch of dementia researchers what dementia is?
Yeah. Or even telling the audience what's going to be in the talk. Like, just do the talk. We'll see what's in the talk. You don't need to tell me I'm sat here. You don't need to tell me what's going to be in it. I'm going to see what's in it.
I completely agree.
Although, if you look at how you're taught to teach, and also, some people like to be told what's coming up, so I can see why people do that. And just going back to what you were saying, Sam, I think that lightning talks are a bit like a window display in a department store. You're kind of like going, ta-da, this is a kind of thing I do, so that people can come up and talk to you about it afterwards if they want to know more detail.
So Sam touched on that there, Lindsey. What advice would you give on structuring a lightning talk? Sam talked about, do you think it's single message, or can you do a story in 4 or 5 minutes?
So I'm a psychiatrist, and we absolutely love stories. That's basically our raison d'etre. So I always try and storyfy things. And part of the reason for that is that I absolutely love public engagement work. So towards the end of my PhD, I went to a workshop on essentially story structure and narratives in relation to science. So learning about something decidedly unsexy called university story structure. I think a really common one is called the hero's journey. So think like Frodo and the Ring, that kind of hero's journey type of thing. And that helps you to understand what's compelling for people. And then the other thing which I did, which I would recommend to everyone listening, is something called FameLab, which is in many countries all around the world. And I did the UK one. And I had some absolutely brilliant training during that for how to structure a 3-minute talk. In the case of FameLab to the public, but I think that it's the same pretty much with a little bit more detail and slightly less explanation. Scientific terms for a scientific audience. And they used essentially the rule of threes. So think about dividing your time. If it's, say, 3 minutes into 3 1-minute segments, never try and deliver more than 3 pieces of information in any one of those sections, and just really trying to break it down and be very clear about exactly what you want to include. So yeah, big shout out to FameLab. I thought that was brilliant purely for the training that they delivered. And it was also an amazing experience.
That's cool. Now I'm jealous. That's very cool. So how do you prepare? Do you prepare differently for a lightning talk as opposed to a standard presentation?
Absolutely. I think this is where, everyone's personalities come into play as well, because I prepare differently for regular talks than other people too. I am a very anxious person in general, and stage fright is real. So for long talks, I actually don't prepare. I just set up the times for certain slides where I'm like, okay, by 20 minutes, I should be at this slide. And if I'm not, I know that I need to speed up. If I'm already past it, I know that I need to slow down. That's kind of how I do it, because the more I practice, the more anxious I get. So I don't want to do that. And I don't practice because of that. For lightning talks, since it's a way shorter amount of time and you don't necessarily have a ton of slides to go through, I do structure it way better, and I actually do time it way better. I always bring a timer with me to the stage. Some conferences actually have the timers that you can look at, but I like using my own just in case. So I have my timer on the stage with me just to make sure I'm sticking to the time so I don't steal extra time from other people's presentations or end insanely early because I spoke too fast. I tend to do that when I'm really anxious. So, when I'm preparing, I may go over it 5, 6, or 10 times at home, just making sure I'm sticking to the times. I don't put together a script because I know I'm not going to memorize and stick to a script, but I put together the specific messages for each minutes, just like Lindsey mentioned, that I want to make sure that I cover. And I definitely focus on, okay, what is the message that I want people to take from this talk? Is it, definitions about something? Maybe it's a community talk and you want them to leave with the right definitions. Or maybe it's a methods focused talk and you want them to hear that, hey, here's this new method that I discovered that you should be looking at. Or maybe it's a, striking finding that I want them to realize, like, that's the cool finding that we should think about. So really focusing on that message, starting with that punchline, and then giving a little bit of details about how I got to that punchline, but like starting high and ending high. It's a little bit of fluctuation, but you don't build up to it. You start high, you grab that attention right away. And I always test especially lightning talks on my friends, not science friends, my actual regular life friends who are not necessarily in the scientific field, to make sure that it's comprehensible for them. Because at these conferences, especially during the lightning talk sessions, there are a lot of talks. You may go through, 10, 20, 30 talks back to back. You fade away. It's a lot. You really get exhausted when you're listening to it. So you need simple descriptions, simple explanations, and making it as, easy to comprehend as much as you can. I think it really helps the listeners. So, you do need to know your audience and not provide dementia definitions if it's a dementia conference. But also, there are going to be people in the audience that faded away, that are hanging on by a thread. So you do need to be mindful of not bombarding them with even more hardcore terminology so that they're just going to sleep during those short amount of time you get. So those are the things that I pay attention to personally.
That's interesting. So you work from bullet points rather than scripting yourself. Lindsey and Sam, are you in the same camp, or do you script?
Well, Adam, I'm sort of like Jay-Z in this regard. Let me explain. So I remember.
Wait a second. You're just going to liken yourself to Jay-Z now? That's a bold claim. I'm looking forward to this.
When he writes a song, he has a beat, but he doesn't write anything down. The beat just plays on loop, and he just comes up with the lyrics in his head over and over again. No script, no writing, just that. And that's similar to how I do a talk. I have my slides. I don't write any script. I just have a timer, my slides, and I just talk through it. Never write anything down. And then I can feel sort of how the talk is going from that part. I can feel if the introduction is too long. If I come and I've gone 3 minutes over, I can then go back again. And I'll just walk up and down my hotel room the night before, just going through it and going through it and going through it until I've got something that's roughly, how I like it. And so that the next day when I settle into it, I've got a structure in my head of how I want to do it. But I also know as the time goes on roughly where I should be. And it always finishes quite nicely to time. And I think that's an example of the thing we often forget in academia is everyone's brain is differently. And you see so many talks of people saying, this is how you should write a talk. This is how you should do a talk. But actually, the best way to do a talk is the way that you find the easiest. And for me, it's just going over and over and over in my head and not writing anything down, because that gives me anxiety. Whereas if I am just in a hotel room, stood up, pacing up and down, talking through it, I know I'm getting myself ready for it.
I suppose it's maybe more likely you'll be thrown that if you've written it down and then you don't say the right thing in the right order, suddenly it can disrupt the flow of the entire thing. Yeah. Do you think I don't know, Lindsey, do you think that the method Sam and Edgy uses allows you to be a little bit more dynamic if things change?
Yeah, I think so. I think you should always be aware of what's happening with your audience. So, for example, you're a minute in and everyone's gone to sleep. Clearly, it's gone badly wrong. So you need to be looking at the effect that you're having on your audience and responding to that. So I sort of have a script, and I have a flow of bullet points that I want to get through. But what I do with my talks, and again, this comes back to like psychiatric training and all the teacher training I've had at university level. I also try and incorporate as much as I can of something called VARC, which is about different learning styles. So the idea that some people are very visual, some people like to read the stuff, some people like you to say stuff. So I also try and incorporate some of that so that I'm trying to maximize the number of people in the room that I'm engaging. But Sam's description of pacing up and down his hotel room, made me chuckle. So on the day that I'm giving a short talk at a conference, I'll often sneak off to a disused part of the conference building. I mean, one that you're allowed to be in, but one where there's no one else, or the toilets or something like that, and just practice what I'm going to say with the timer on my phone. And that for me is what gets me in the headspace where I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to
go. Do any of you record yourself, record the audio of this and then listen to it back?
I video myself. I'm a terrible hand waver, so I video myself and just check that I don't look like, oh no, I'm trying to direct traffic.
What about you, Sam Edger? Do you record yourself doing your talks? Do you listen to yourself back?
I've done it once, and did that 60-second pitch to the investors, and that was basically record it, send it to the rest of the founding team. Any suggestions, come back. That's the only time I've ever done it. I think it would throw me a little bit hearing myself.
Yeah, I don't do it. I can't stand my own sounds. I definitely don't want to watch any recordings of myself. And it does get me more anxious. It does get me like, oh, I gotta pay attention to this, that, and it throws me off my natural flow. So it doesn't work for me. But it does work for some people, as we can hear from Lindsey and Sam. It's just not the right option for me. And I will say, like, I do things to kind of reduce my anxiety, and I have my own ways of doing things, but it's not a bad thing to have anxiety giving these talks, or if, audience picks up on your anxiety, it actually shows that you care. You don't want to go to a talk where the speaker's too professional, that it comes off as, they're just giving you whatever they memorize without really paying much attention to their emotions, etc. It comes robotic, it doesn't feel natural, and you don't leave the talk feeling like, it doesn't really capture you. But if you see someone anxious, if you see someone actually, making mistakes, fumbling through those words, you actually realize this person really cares about what they're doing. They want to deliver a good talk, and they're really trying hard. They may not be there yet, but that does stay with you, and you do get intrigued because you're like, okay, there's passion in this. This person really cares about that topic. This topic must be something that someone cares about it this much. So it does capture you in that way as well.
And I don't know if you'd agree that different styles suit different audiences. I'm not sure that our academic research audience appreciate that kind of uber polished TED Talk style, that kind of walk on confident and is word perfect and says, I don't really kind of go for that. I think, I don't know, I guess other people do, but you kind of like a little bit of bringing the audience along with you, not just like you're selling. That's it. You're not just selling the idea to them, that you're trying to bring people with you. Moving on, you've all, I think, mentioned at some point the concept of visuals, because I realize I think most lightning talks in the kind of academic space probably allow you some slides. Although I was at an Alzheimer's Society event early this year, I think they called it Soapbox Science Competition, where there were no slides. So I know it might not always be possible. But Edger, I'll stick with you. What makes an effective slide or slides, plural, for a short presentation?
I think, being mindful that it should grab people's attention, but it shouldn't be the only thing people are focusing on. They have to hear you giving the talk too. So if you put too much text in it, people are just going to spend your whole talk trying to read all the text, trying to gather what you're saying on the slide. So none of the attention will be on you. So it should be complementing your talk. It shouldn't be the main attention grabber. You should be the main show, and it's the prop that's going to help you shine even more. So keeping it less text, more image heavy, and not filling all the blank spots. Like, don't tire people's eyes. Like, make it easy to actually look. Okay, it's cool. Let's hear what this person is saying about this kind of a thing. I think that helps. And again, I test run all my slides on my family and friends who are not in science. So I think they give the best feedback. They're not necessarily looking for, itsy bitsy details, and it's a quick talk anyways. So that helps me structure things a bit better. Always be mindful of colorblind friendly palettes, because you don't know who in your audience may struggle looking at a graph and not knowing what you're showing because it's not colorblind friendly. And, just make sure you don't have typos. Go through the text definitely, and just don't put too much text. And for the images too, don't make it too complicated. You are going to get the audience that may be in your field, but they may be junior or very senior. So you have to be mindful that everyone who looks at your figure will understand kind of what you're trying to get at.
Do you think there's a rule of thumb for how many slides, say, for a 4-minute talk? Are you talking like one slide every 30 seconds? I mean, obviously not necessarily evenly divided, but how many slides do you think is too many?
We usually go for our clinical research talks, we go 1 slide per minute. But I do feel like if you can capture things in less slides, do it. If you need a couple more slides, do it. It is really based on the message you're trying to convey and your style. I like using memes and GIFs in my slides, for instance, and they take up some space. So there may be like extra slides just to go through that GIF, give a little comedic relief in between and move on. So I may have like an extra slide that way. It just works for me. But I would say 1 slide per minute has been the golden number in general for our talks.
With some bonus lightning slides that are just on for a few seconds to hammer home the point.
Yes.
Sam, you've already talked to this. You've already said you're kind of a fan of not cramming too much into a slide. What do you think is the risk here? What are the common mistakes, do you think, when it comes to this slides for short talks?
Yeah, I've seen this a lot. And surprisingly, it's often a senior researcher, a PI or a professor who's got a flash talk and has decided to put 15 years of research into 5 minutes because they want to have their story told. And that's a bit of a red flag, I think, for the ability to communicate, because really the whole point of a flash talk is pick one thing that's exciting and show it us. And if you try and cram everything in, people just leave feeling confused. A good flash talk, you walk away with one major learning, and that's when the flash talk's been good. You walk away and think, I learned something new there, and it was this. If you try and cram 10, 15 years worth of research or an entire paper into a flash talk, people are not going to have any idea what's going on unless it's in their specific field of interest. Because generally the flash talks are quite far reaching. You get a breadth of different topics, and it's quite a broad audience for the flash talks. And you just end up losing people. So I think I would say that's the biggest risk when you try and cram things in. And also you risk stressing yourself out as well by trying to speak quickly, trying to talk through things fast. You really want a nice, even paced delivery, 3 to 7 slides, and you need to be comfortable delivering it as well.
Well, you raise a good point there that I think, see if you agree, that sometimes the abstract submission process, because it's kind of generic, you'll go through the same abstract submission process, whether you're putting in for a plenary or a lightning talk or a poster. And when you put your abstract in, you're probably going to be pitching a big abstract, which might be the entire study. But then when you're chosen to give a lightning talk, what you put in as your abstract to what you deliver on the day may have to change slightly. You may have to zero in, as I think, Ed, you mentioned as well, both Sam, on one thing from that study. You can't present the entire massive 18-month study in that time, even though that might be inconsistent with what you put in your abstract.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key, though. And when you go to a conference, if you wanted to talk, but you get a poster, well, you've got a poster. So make your poster, make it as good as you can. Don't try and make it a talk. And the same if you wanted a 15-minute talk, but you got a 5-minute flash, make a 5-minute flash and do it as good as you can. I think it's that simple. It might sound a bit brutal, but take what you've been given and make the best of it.
You make a good point about, I can imagine, you can just imagine, can't you, some senior researchers that don't even read the rules. They think lightning talk, yeah, and then they just turn up expecting to do whatever they've usually done all along. And the poor organizer or the chair of the session's sitting there very uncomfortably, not wanting to be, I think we could do a whole separate podcast on just the skill of chairing a lightning session and how you move people along politely. Okay, so you've done the prep, but the real test, of course, is on the stage with the clock ticking. Performance is critical. I'm going to come back to you, Lindsey. What tips do you have for handling nerves?
Oh, well, as a psychiatrist, I have quite a large toolbox of strategies for dealing with nerves,
Edger
as
wants
you'd
these.
expect. And so I have carried on with my clinical work throughout my research career, and I think that the two really complement each other. Like I said, working as a psychiatrist is brilliant for knowing how to handle conference nerves. So there's all sorts of different ways. There's finding a way of being in your happy place. So that comes like more visualization type thing. So you'll often see people disappearing off down corridors, kind of like looking into the distance. That's probably what they're doing. You see people doing breathing exercises, and they really, really work. They essentially make you less anxious by altering the pH of your blood. Brilliant. Recommend those to all of my patients with any kind of anxiety problem. Some people like to have like sensory objects. Some people like to have particular clothes. When I was a rower competing, some people had lucky underwear. It's whatever works for you, frankly.
Edger, you said you get nervous. I'm gonna ask you the same question because you deal with this. How do you handle your nerves?
Sometimes I just don't. That's why I don't practice, hoping that it doesn't build my anxiety up. And it does work for me. I usually try to remind myself, hey, if it goes insanely bad, I hope someone was recording so I can start my YouTuber career and make even more money. So, I think about that. I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, influencer life. I'll make more money, which is good. And also, comedy is tragedy plus time. Even if you look terrible, do something terrible. I've seen people curse during giving talks too, and it makes you giggle, you laugh, and then you actually remember them. So, there's nothing wrong with giving a talk that everyone's going to remember for later on as well. And you end up laughing about it. I think all of us in clinic research, we've had instances where we made mistakes in our talks, we've given terrible talks, no matter how, professional experienced you are going to give a terrible talk. You may have a very bad day. You may end up giving such a horrible talk. People are petrified by it. But it's just, the way of life. That's how it goes. You brush it off, you move on. So I just keep that in mind. All those people I look up to, they failed at some talks too. So it's okay that I failed. I learned from it. I move on. And next talk will be even better. And the more you give talks, it does take that pressure off. So, jump on any talk opportunities you can get, especially early on in your career. Don't be like, oh, I'm not ready yet. No, if someone's inviting you, it means they think you're ready. So go for it. Give it your best, even if you get super anxious. That's totally fine.
I think even with a 4 or 5 minute talk is another thing I tend to rush. So when I'm nervous, I kind of rush through things. I'll speed through. My 4 minute talk could end up being a 3 minute one, just because I'm so desperately keen to get those words out there and get off the stage as quickly as possible. And I think even with a 4 minute, there should still be time to breathe, pause, pace yourself equally. So talking about timing though, what do you do if you lose your place or your time is cut or you're on the stage and the chair looks at nudges over and says 60 seconds and you're still on slide number 2? How do you deal with that, Sam?
I've got to be honest here, it's never happened to me.
Oh, you're just being cocky. That's just too perfect.
I have seen it happen, and I've seen it handled terribly and handled badly. I think the worst thing you can do is ignore that and carry on at the pace that you were.
Yeah.
The best thing you can
I
do.
think that seems to happen as the default, isn't it? That the speaker
Yeah.
goes, yeah, sure. Okay, but I'm just going to get through this now. And you're not going any quicker.
I think the best thing you can do is, in that situation, you've got 60 seconds left, and take a couple of seconds to think what's the most important thing to show here. Decide that quick, skip to it, tell it, jump to your discussion, your conclusions, and then invite people to come and speak to you afterwards if they'd like more information. It's a hard situation to get out of. So there's no best case scenario, but there's a better case scenario.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even if you just take 10 seconds or 20 seconds to just, okay, let me just give me a second, flick through your slides and say, these are the points I'm going to pick on, actually acknowledge it and, face it head on rather than just plowing on. You see happen too often. Has that happened to anybody here? Has anybody been told 30 seconds and you haven't had time? No, because you're all consummate professionals.
It hasn't happened to me, but I saw it at a 3-minute thesis competition. Someone who was on the stage for about 15 minutes talking and clearly went way over their time, and it was like elephant in the room territory. They'd been told, and they clearly were too anxious to be able to make use of that information. And yeah, everyone was just sat there thinking, when is this person going to stop? It was really awkward.
So
yeah, it's happened to me too. It's not a rare thing. It happens, and it's happened to me too. And I've definitely been like, okay, I guess I'm out of time. Let's cut to the chase, kind of a deal. But think about it in your regular life too. You may be telling a story, and you may look at your friend, family, and they may be like, "Oh, cut to the chase," but you're like, "Okay, let me wrap this up." So it's just like that, you got to be mindful of like people coming after you, people listening to you. Or we can wrap this up. It's fine. It's not the end of the world, and it doesn't show that you're bad at what you do. It's just that one little incident, you wrap it up, you move on, and it's done.
yeah, when you got fixated on one slide and you realize you over-described that, and it's really hard. I mean, when you've only got 4 minutes, even just 20, 30 seconds where you spend too long describing on something than you planned, there's no coming back from that, because that 30 seconds is half your conclusion in your last slide. You've just got to stay on track.
But that partly comes down to the preparation and the practicing, doesn't it? So that you know that you've allowed, 10 seconds extra if you're waffling.
Yeah, good point. If you're preparing your lightning talk, don't fill the whole 4 minutes, fill 3.5. It's better to finish slightly early than it is to not have enough time. So we all agree lightning talks can be brilliant opportunities, but then definitely not without their challenges. What do you think now? So I'm gonna turn into my salesman's pitch now, of course. So anybody who's listening, Abstracts just opened for the AIC Neuroscience Next conference for 2026, which is happening in February next year. And if you're in the UK also, well, Abstracts opened for the Alzheimer's Research UK conference, which is happening in Manchester just before and around the same time as Neuroscience Next. And both of those events have opportunities for lightning talk presenters. So for anybody who's listening, who's on the fence, what do you think are some of the biggest benefits of early career researchers giving lightning talks? I'm going to ask Sam.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity, especially if you've not got a lot of experience with talks. It's a good opportunity to have a less high pressure. I mean, it's high pressure in the sense that you've got to try and be concise. But usually with a flash talk, there's no questions afterwards. And if you ask any PhD student what they're most nervous about, it's getting a question afterwards that they don't know how to answer. Because everyone's confident in the research, but the one thing you can't predict is what you're going to get asked. Where the lightning talk, you don't have the opportunity for questions. It's speaker, next speaker, next speaker, next speaker. But I think it's also really good training for getting you used to making your data concise, making your explanations concise. That's going to be really critical when you're writing a paper and when you're writing your thesis. And so I think they're a really good exercise for helping you to gather your thoughts, work out what's most impactful, and translate it in a way that's digestible to a wide audience. And especially if it's one of your first talks, I think it's a really nice introduction to giving conference talks. Usually the audience is friendlier. I mean, conference audiences are pretty friendly anyway. There's usually one person, though, who sits at the back and asks a billion questions, but that's usually because they're interested, not because they're difficult. But I think they're just a really nice introduction to conference speaking, and definitely one that I think everyone should do at some point.
It definitely opens up opportunities as well, isn't it? Obviously, if you get a poster, I mean, we should add, of course, that most hybrid conferences now that have digital posters that allow you to upload those too, most of those, certainly I know all the Alzheimer's Association ones and Neuroscience Next do, and I think Alzheimer's Researcher Kiddos allows you to record a kind of 3-minute film to go with your poster to upload that alongside, which is almost kind of like a 3-minute lightning talk or like a little recording against that. So take those opportunities, because I think that kind of visual way of doing it is far more engaging. I would agree. I'm going to ask all of you as regular conference goers, what separates for you that kind of memorable lightning talk from a forgettable one? Lindsey.
So I suppose the memorable ones for me are firstly the ones which connect with my research interests. I definitely always remember those. But that's just down to luck, isn't it? So I think the next thing that I look for is someone who's excited about their work, who's passionate, who's engaging, who varies the tone of their voice, who moves around a bit rather than just standing still and talking in a monotone. No matter how good your science is, if you don't have any of those presentation skills, then it does make it harder for your audience to engage. And then coming back to some of the stuff that we were saying earlier, not too much text on slides. For me, it's like nails on a blackboard if you've got everything that you're going to say on the slide and then you just read it out. But we're all different,
I agree. Edger?
I love the personal touch when someone mentions how much they love what they do or how they're connected to that type of research, or they add a personal picture in there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like your kid, your dog, or something else. It may be a still from a show that you like, some fun thing that connects to the research. I really appreciate that because I think that gives a chance for me to actually connect with the person behind the science too. And that's shamelessly how I tend to pick my collaborators. I like to work with people who are very passionate about what they do, that it is a part of their life. It doesn't have to be their whole life, but if they're bringing some personal connection in there, that's just what I look for. That's just what I love.
Yeah, I quite like the just, even if it's just a little I remember this happened and something else, what happened at the same day, or why you kind of went down the route you did. Just something personal add to that. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think this is where I'm maybe a bit fickle. A lot of it is how the person delivers it. It tends to be what grabs my attention. I remember even at university, I wouldn't always learn stuff from lectures. I'd learn by reading it afterwards. But if the lecturer was really engaging, I would learn more in the lecture itself. So someone who presents with confidence and passion and looks at the audience and, has that engagement, that really grabs me. I remember the first conference I went to, it was a hydrocolloids conference, materials in medicine. And I listened to someone talk for 30 minutes about adding things to ice cream to make them freeze better, and finding it fascinating just because of the way the person delivered it. It was completely different to what I was doing. And I realized that the way my brain works is I listen more to a speaker that's engaging. And if they're talking about something I'm interested in, even better. But if I find someone engaging to listen to, I can listen to them talk about anything and find it interesting. So me, it's about how it gets delivered.
We're almost out of time, but before we finish, I want each of you to share one very quick, in lightning talk style, piece of advice for anybody giving a lightning talk for their very first time. And I'm going to go to Sam first.
Remove your ums. It's really hard to do. I found out that I did this. So I had a lot of public speaking training when I was a kid because I had a bad speech, not impediment, but I would try and speak too fast. And I thought I was great at public speaking, but in lockdown, my partner saw me talk and told me I quite a lot. So the first thing I would do is anytime I I'd take a sip of water. And so slowly that became me not but taking a sip of water instead. And eventually just a little gap. And if you can do that, your talk is a lot smoother. Can kill the flow. It can also kill the audience's confidence in what you're saying. So get rid of your erms.
Disinfluencers, aren't they? They're called disinfluencers, and it's not just erms. It can be people who start every sentence with a so, a kind of repetitive use of word and things like that. They do that. Thank you, Sam. Lindsey, as I do it myself. Straight into it. Lindsey.
So something from my sports world, you'll notice using so at the beginning of a sentence. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Try saying that quickly after 10 pints.
I've heard a different version of that one.
Yes, most polite version that was able to be put on various rowing T-shirts. I think it really, really helps, or at least it helps me. And the other piece of advice I would give to any early career researchers is do it. Talks look really good on your CV and will help you get grants and posts later on. So definitely do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Thank you very much. And Edja.
Well, to add on to all that amazing advice, I'll say be yourself. Everyone has their own way of giving talks and prepping for things. Just follow whatever feels right for you. If you're trying to fit into a mold, it's not going to work and it shows. So don't try that. Find whatever tips work best for you. And especially if you're a non-native speaker like me, don't worry about your accents. Talk slower. People will understand. And if, people don't understand, then that's good feedback for your next talk and you'll prep accordingly.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to round off in a minute, but one of the things that regular attendees of our salon webinars will know is that we've trained friendly AI using content just from the Dementia Researcher website. The Dementia Researcher website has over 3,000 pages of blogs, webinar transcripts, podcast transcripts, articles, all designed to support early career researchers. And we've given an AI just the content from our website, not from the internet, so we know it's entirely trustworthy. Sam's blogs, Lindsey's blogs will be in there. Edgy, you've done a webinar for us now and a podcast, so the transcripts have gone into educating this tool. And I asked that AI to give me some top tips for lightning talks, and now I'm going to read them out and see if you got them to test you. Number 1 was practice to the clock, rehearse out loud several times, aim to finish under time. If you're given 5 minutes, aim for 4 minutes 30. Record yourself once, listen back, and you can fix it where you rush, stumble, or lose clarity. You all said that. Tick. Well done. Number 2, confidence, not cocky. I think I said this. Project enthusiasm and belief in your work, but avoid overselling, and smile and speak clearly. Number 3, keep it succinct, one message only. If the audience remembers one key point after your talk, you've done well. Strip out the jargon and technical details. Speak with interest, not giving a full seminar. You all nailed that. Number 4, clear structure. Start, middle, end. Start to hook your audience in with the question or the striking fact. Middle, which is why you did it and what matters and what you did, and then give them something to take away at the end. Acknowledgements. I think even though you're giving a 4-minute talk, there's always time to at least give a few acknowledgements, whether that's to your participants, your supervisor, your colleagues, whoever's helped you be where you are. Don't avoid doing that. And number 5, connect quickly with the audience. Look up from your notes, make eye contact with people and vary your voice. If possible, tailor your language for a mixed audience. Avoid acronyms. Number 6, disinfluencers. Plan for nerves, breathe slowly before you start. Have a rescue line ready. Something like, the key message I want to leave you with is, have something there ready. Number 7, a strong ending. Avoid trailing off and saying, oh yeah, well, that's it. Have a clean final line that you've practiced. I've seen that done a lot as well. I don't know if you'd all agree that people get to the end and go, okay, yeah, done, thanks. The audience starts clapping. Number 8 was bonus tip, embrace the format. Don't see the short time as a limitation. Think of it as a teaser trailer. Your aim is to spark curiosity and conversation where people will talk to you after you talk. I think you got all of those in your top tips. Thank you very much to my brilliant guests, Sam, Lindsey, and Edja, for joining me. And thank you for listening. Lightning talks are short, but with preparation and focus, they can make a real impact. And for more resources on presenting and conference skills and lots of other tools that will help, head to the Dementia Researcher website at dementiaresearcher.nihr.ac.uk. And I've mentioned this already once today, but I also want to take the chance to once again plug AAIC Neuroscience Next, which is happening on several days over February, but in Manchester as well on the 27th of February, where we'll be hosting a day of this hub with a focus on all the different kinds of biomarkers, from blood to imaging to cognitive testing to physical and the rest. And we've got 20 slots for lightning talk presenters across all those different domains. So if you work in one of those area biomarkers, we'd love to see your abstracts. And abstracts are open now, and you can submit your abstract at als.org/neuroscience next. They're open through to the 22nd of October or the 26th of October for iStart members. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much again to Lindsey, Sam, and Edgar. I'm Adam Smith, and you've been listening to the Dementia Researcher Podcast. Thank you.
Bye.
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 The Dementia Researcher Podcast was brought to you by University College London with generous funding from the UK National Institute for Health Research, Alzheimer's Research UK, Alzheimer's Society, Alzheimer's Association, and Race Against Dementia. Please subscribe, leave us a review, and register on our website for full access to all our great resources. dementiaresearcher.nihr.ac.uk